To understand the architecture of the cosmos in its full operational complexity, philosophy must frequently employ a radical thought experiment, the method of subtraction or cosmic reduction. In the traditional schools of Indian metaphysics, this is a systematic process of peeling back the layers of reality to examine what remains when the moving parts are entirely removed. Imagine a state of existence where every form of movement, sound, light, heat, and vibration is completely dissolved. What remains when we subtract everything that moves? The classical foundational text of Shakta Tantra, the Anandalahari, famously attributed to the great philosopher sage Adi Shankara, opens its very first verse with an uncompromising and revolutionary declaration. It states that if Shiva is conjoined with his supreme kinetic counterpart, Shakti, he gains the functional potency to manifest, project, govern, and sustain the universe. If, however, he is isolated from her, the divine cannot even stir, pulse, or vibrate. This lack of vibration is not a minor functional deficit. It is an absolute existential arrest. Without Shakti, the state of Shiva is philosophically designated as Shava, a corpse. This concept of Shava is a precise, mathematically rigorous formula embedded within the sacred phonetics of the Sanskrit alphabet. In the esoteric science of matrika, the hidden power of letters, the name Shiva is composed of specific acoustic seeds. It contains the essential vowel sound I. Within Tantric linguistics, this specific vowel represents Ichcha Shakti, the divine power of intentionality, will, animation, motivation, and vitalizing force. When you philosophically or structurally subtract the vowel I from the word Shiva, the word immediately collapses into its phonetic remnant, Shava, which translates directly as a dead body, a corpse devoid of life. This demonstrates that pure consciousness, when completely divorced from its innate dynamic potency, has absolutely no mechanism for self-expression, communication, or manifestation. Creation requires friction, a deliberate shift from potentiality to actuality, and the introduction of a polarity. Shiva by himself represents Nirguna, the qualityless, completely unmanifest absolute. He can be compared to a boundless ocean of water that is frozen at a temperature of absolute zero, where not a single molecule, atom, or subatomic particle can move or vibrate. He is like a blank canvas before a drop of paint has ever been mixed, existing only as a theoretical possibility of art, completely devoid of color, line, shape, or shadow. If there were just Shiva in the cosmic circle, the universe would remain permanently unmanifest, trapped in the womb of non-being. There would be no physical matter, no chemical elements, no burning stars, no orbiting galaxies, and no biological life. Without energy, time would not tick, because time is fundamentally the measurement of change, and change is a direct function of energy. Without energy, there are no intervals, no past, no present, and no future. There is only a frozen eternity. Space would lose its structural meaning because space requires the distance between separate objects to define its parameters. If there are no objects to occupy space, space itself collapses back into a featureless nothingness. The cosmic circle becomes a completely empty, blank void where reality is paralyzed in a single, unyielding, non-operational moment. Furthermore, the mind, in all its psychological complexity, is a subtle modification of kinetic energy. In a universe devoid of Shakti, there is no cosmic mind, no thoughts, no desires, and no capacity for action. Shiva sits in a state of absolute, eternal, existential paralysis. Human experience is typically bound by 3 distinct structural bodies and 3 corresponding states of consciousness, forming a dense, interlocking matrix of localized identity. To reach the absolute baseline of reality, a seeker must understand, dissect, and systematically dissolve these layers. The first and most obvious layer is the gross physical body, known in Sanskrit as the Sthula Sharira. This body operates exclusively in the waking state of consciousness, termed Jagrat. It interacts with the material world through the 5 gross senses of sight, sound, smell, taste, and touch. It is bound by physical laws, gravity, structural friction, time, and biological decay. In this waking state, we are convinced that the external world is solid, separate from us, and independent of our awareness. Beneath this physical sheath lies the subtle body, the Sukshma Sharira. This is the complex energetic, emotional, and psychological apparatus that remains highly active during the dreaming state of consciousness, known as svapna. It encompasses the mind, the intellect, the ego, the subconscious memory banks, and the intricate network of 72,000 life force currents known as prana. In this dream state, the soul is temporarily free from the heavy limitations of the physical body, yet it remains completely trapped in a subjective, psychological landscape. The subtle body architecture mixes daytime memories, unfulfilled desires, deep-seated anxieties, and fears to project elaborate inner worlds of thought and emotion. It is the primary vault where our evolutionary conditioning, habits, and mental impressions, known as samskaras, reside, creating a persistent sense of a separate identity. The deepest, most mysterious layer of human incarnation is the causal body, the Karana Sharira. This body is experienced by every human being during the state of deep, dreamless sleep, known as sushupti. In this state, both the physical senses and the active subtle mind are completely shut down. There are no thoughts, no images, no dreams, and no physical sensations. It is experienced upon waking as a dark, blank, peaceful, and restorative void. Yet this state is far from true spiritual liberation. The causal body is named causal because it contains the unmanifest causal seeds of our karma, our hidden tendencies, and our fundamental spiritual amnesia known as avidya. It is the dense cloud of primal ignorance that prevents us from knowing our true divine nature. When we wake up from deep sleep, the ego immediately sprouts back from these hidden, unmanifest seeds. The ancient text, the Mandukya Upanishad, introduces a supreme state of consciousness that lies completely beyond this threefold matrix, known simply as Turiya, which literally translates from the Sanskrit as the fourth. Turiya is not an experiential state that comes and goes like waking, dreaming, or sleeping. It is not an altered state of consciousness that you enter through effort and exit due to fatigue. Rather, it is the permanent, unchanging, eternal background screen upon which the other 3 states are continuously projected, sampled, and withdrawn. It is the thread that runs through the beads of waking, dreaming, and sleeping. When a practitioner enters Turiya through deep meditation, a systematic dissolution occurs. As one enters Turiya, the gross body is forgotten as physical sensory data falls away into absolute insignificance. The subtle body is silenced as the mind stops churning out its internal narratives and emotional storms. Finally, the causal body is pierced. The deep, dark cloud of spiritual amnesia is illuminated by a supreme, non-dual light. The seeds of future karma stored within the causal body are metaphorically roasted in the fire of absolute awareness, rendering them completely sterile and incapable of sprouting again. When stripped of these 3 bodies and their corresponding states of consciousness, what remains is the absolute baseline of reality, a state of pure, non-dual oneness known as Satchit Ananda, absolute truth, pure consciousness, and unconditioned, supreme bliss. To comprehend the majesty of the Turiya state, one must thoroughly investigate the behavioral shift of the divine feminine energy. In the mundane world of daily life, Shakti operates as an outward-moving energy, a force known in Sanskrit as Bahirmukha. In this outward-facing manifestation, she is the master architect, spinning the intricate multi-dimensional web of the material universe. She condenses consciousness into solid matter, creating stars, oceans, mountains, and complex biological systems. Her primary function in the worldly realm is to create multiplicity, diversity, and separation. She throws a veil over the singular eye of Shiva, making the one look like the many. However, the moment a seeker turns inward and approaches the sacred threshold of the Turiya state, Shakti completely reverses her trajectory, becoming an inward-facing, imploding force known as Antarmukha. As an inward force, her role shifts dramatically from the architect of cosmic illusion to the high priestess of spiritual return. She is no longer building walls of separation, she is tearing them down. As the practitioner dives deep into the silent waters of meditation, Shakti acts as a magnificent dissolving force, a principle known as Laya Shakti. She begins a precise, methodical process of conscious involution, tracking her own cosmic footprints back to their absolute origin. She pulls the scattered currents of life force, or prana, out of the peripheral nervous system and condenses this energy into the central energetic highway of the spine, the Sushumna Nadi. Like a tortoise slowly and deliberately retracting its limbs into its shell, she withdraws the five senses from their external objects and enters the laboratory of the subtle mind, deliberately collapsing its structures into a perfectly flat, tranquil mirror. In the profound teachings of Kashmir Shaivism, it is explicitly and repeatedly emphasized that consciousness cannot realize itself through sheer human willpower, egoistic effort, or intellectual gymnastics. A human being cannot think their way into the fourth state, nor can they storm the gates of heaven through aggressive, ego-driven practice. The final transition into Turiya requires a descent of divine grace, an act of spiritual illumination known as Anugraha Shakti. Shakti is this dynamic doorway of grace. She acts as a cosmic solvent, a spiritual acid that liquefies the hardened, rigid boundaries of the causal body. By peeling back the final deepest veil of cosmic illusion, known as Maya, that she herself wove around the soul, she exposes the naked, pristine, blinding light of Shiva underneath, carrying human awareness across the terrifying threshold of the ego's death. The quest to define the ultimate nature of the supreme reality, known as Brahman, marks the primary philosophical fork in the road between strict Advaita Vedanta and the tantric schools of Kashmir Shaivism and Shaktism. In the traditional framework of Advaita Vedanta, Brahman is defined strictly as nirguna, meaning absolutely without attributes, qualities, distinctions, and completely actionless, equated solely with pure, unchanging, immutable consciousness, corresponding to the silent, unmoving principle of Shiva. The material universe is categorized under the umbrella of Maya, designated as a lower relative level of existence, described as anirvachaniya, meaning it is fundamentally indescribable. According to this strict path, when a soul achieves absolute liberation, the cosmic illusion of Maya dissolves without leaving a trace, leaving only the single static reality of pure consciousness. Tantric sages and the masters of Kashmir Shaivism offered a profound revolutionary critique of this static absolute, arguing that if the supreme reality is completely devoid of dynamic power, it is rendered fundamentally incomplete and impotent. The profound mysteries of this cosmic dance do not end here, as we have only just begun to scratch the surface of absolute reality. In the upcoming second part of this video series, we will dive even deeper into this exact philosophical exploration, picking up right where we left off to reveal the hidden, practical keys of ultimate liberation. Make sure you are subscribed and have notifications turned on, so you do not miss the continuation of this extraordinary journey into the profound union of consciousness and supreme energy.